Mallory, would you like to lead us?
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now we'll go to introductions. Heidi, would you like to start?
Heidi Branson, Tri-Delta Transit.
Michael Dalgelli, East County Paratransit rider.
Dee Daly, East County Consumer.
I'm Erin Jimenez with the City of San Pablo, and taking my spot for the next meeting will be Vicki Wachowski.
And I'm Janet Abelson from West County.
Mallory Brush, AC Transit.
Janet Bilbas, City of El Cerrito.
Colleen Adams, West County.
That was Carl. And then why don't we now go to the audience after we go to Peter?
Peter Engel, CCTA staff.
Okay, and
Irene Ortega, CCTA staff.
okay. And is there a mic that we could pass around?
Ralph Hoffman with the Senior Mobility Action Council.
Leslie Young, Golden Rain Foundation, Rossmore.
Rita Xavier, San Pablo Planning Commission and Committee on Aging.
Joanna Pollock, West Contra Costa Transportation Advisory Committee.
John Cunningham, Contra Costa County.
Hi, I'm Doug Cross. I am Douglas J. Cross Transportation Consulting here in the capacity working with my colleague Jay Jeter for the City of San Pablo.
And I'm Jay Jeter, Transit Strategies.
I'm sorry, could you say your name again?
Jay Jeter?
Jay?
Yes.
J-A-Y?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Jeter.
Okay, and would you like to introduce yourself?
Sorry about being late. Laramie Bowen with the County Connection.
Okay, so we now have a quorum. And thank you all for coming. And the next item on the agenda is public comments for items that are not on the agenda. Is there anybody any member of the public who would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda?
Ralph Hoffman again with the Senior Mobility Action Council in Central County. I live in Walnut Creek. Janet and members of the council. I'm modeling today a little pad that could very well be sold by 2CTA or given away even. That may be a reason that particularly senior men can use Link County Connection Link or door-to-door service in preference to fixed route. Quite simply, I'll come out here to model it. It's about a 1-inch thick pad. I'm sure you're aware that fixed route bus stop seats are all either concrete or metal, and particularly senior men, but for anyone really, it's much easier to sit on this padded seat. It's about 1 inch thick, and there's room here for on the other side that I didn't show you for papers if you want to use it as a briefcase. I have it hooked to my belt quite simply because one of the things that seniors need to avoid is falls, and this way a senior can walk hands-free and still that hand grasp on the top of it is big enough that I can use it to sit down on a concrete seat. These were a little softer, but I can remember when County Connection Link seats were quite hard and actually painful for me to sit on. And now they have more padded seats. But this is just a suggestion of something to market or give away, to advertise to CTA or any of the fixed route services in the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public like to speak on items not on the agenda? Okay, not seeing any, we will move on to the minutes of March the 17th.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, so the motion was made by Mallory, the second was made by Michael. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries unanimously. With that, we will move on to item number 5, which is the San Pablo Service Plan. Erin?
Thank you. Back in September, we brought on Jay Jeter from Transit Strategies and Douglas Cross from Douglas J. Cross Transportation Consulting. And they did a needs assessment and efficiencies review for our program to kind of make sure we were doing things right and give us an idea of how we could do things better. So I will hand it over to them to give you guys a brief presentation on what we've done since September.
We're going to take a second to make sure that because we have a PowerPoint presentation, so we're going to make sure that that's set up before we get started. Okay. I'm not going to argue with you.
Yeah. Do you have a clicker?
Am I okay where I am?
Yep.
Okay.
Can you see that in front of you?
Yeah.
Can you? Thank you. That'd be great. Yeah, there we go. Good afternoon, chair members and staff. My name is Jay Jeter of Transit Strategies. Doug Cross, J. Cross, Transportation Consulting, and I did an analysis of the San Pablo transit system. Just a little bit of a brief introduction for me. I have 15 years of transit and paratransit experience. Actually worked with Janet Abelson for East Bay Paratransit years ago. Moved over to another contractor about 3 or 4 years ago, and then came back to a company called MV Transportation about 2 years ago, and then left and then did my own thing in 2011. We took a look, and I'll let Doug introduce himself when it's his opportunity to speak. We took a look at the system and answered the RFP that Aaron put out late last year. If we could get the next slide. The purpose of our analysis was to review and evaluate the policies in the system, to review the fleet maintenance program, to take a look at the service levels and the appropriateness of those service levels, to conduct, and Doug will talk about, to conduct a needs assessment, along with identifying future needs, and to develop a marketing program. And then we were going to make recommendations for improvements in the future. If we could get the next slide. I want to take this opportunity, though, to commend San Pablo for taking a look at their system. I mean, it's kind of hard to ask for critical feedback, and it's not always something that's comfortable to do. They were very, very open to that criticism, okay. criticism would be the word, and showed a great willingness to improve their system and make it more accessible to more riders and more safe. So the first thing that we did was we took a look at the way that they do their operations, the way that they handle trips, the way that they answer the phone, and we determined that there were some significant challenges right from the bat. The first one was the location of their dispatch office, which was in the middle of their senior center, and it was very loud, very noisy, and people had a lot of access to records that they probably shouldn't have because of the location of the office. We also took a look at the method that they were booking trips. It was not really a shared ride system. It was more of a trip-to-trip-to-trip system. There was not a lot of efficiency, and so there were a lot of folks that were shut out of the system because they just couldn't get a trip the way that they were booking trips. The schedule for the dispatcher was one where they were that dispatcher had, or dispatcher/reservationist had every other Friday off, which was a challenge in booking trips because the person or riders had to call and leave a message at times or speak to someone who did not have the same familiarity with the system to be able to book trips properly. The no-show policy was one that we also thought was problematic. It did not discourage no-shows, and it was very, very high on customer service and very, very low on accessibility to the majority of the riders that wanted to use the system. There were some problems with the record keeping. Their manifest didn't identify a lot of things that we thought were important in the way of mobility devices, attendance, anything like that. We thought that there were things that we needed to improve there. And then the radio communications, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Their radio communications were, they were using cell phones, and we thought that that was not the most appropriate way to communicate because it allowed for longer communications and not as, you couldn't get as far from the vehicle as you'd like to be able to find someone to do a trip. So those are the things that we found right away with, and there are a couple others. We'll go to the next slide. A couple others. We had some, and we kind of had to shift our focus a little bit from maintenance to the CHP, or the California Highway Patrol audits, because there were some challenges with that as well. We had a problem with the drug and alcohol procedures and testing and who's supposed to be tested, when they're supposed to be tested. And we also had some problems with the vehicle inspection reports. They were not compliant with CHP. They didn't identify enough things from a maintenance perspective to allow for the CHP to understand that we were doing proper pre-trips and post-trips. Okay, the next one. We also identified some safety hazards on the vehicles. The drivers were not securing the tie downs on the vehicles when they were done with them. So at the beginning of the day, they'd put their tie downs into the tracks, and then they'd leave them there. So if you boarded and you were an ambulatory passenger, you might trip, and that was something that we identified as a problem. We also saw that there was not a standardized training program for the drivers. We also saw that there was no reoccurring training that's mandated by law, and that we identified some workers' compensation issues with the size of wheelchairs and whether or not the drivers were strong enough, frankly, to be able to push the vehicle, the wheelchairs onto the vehicle properly and without injuring themselves. Because of the ramp, they couldn't push the vehicle or the wheelchairs up onto the vehicle up the ramp. So, some of the recommended changes that we made from an operations perspective and safety perspective, we recommended that the office immediately be moved, which was done. By the way, a lot of these recommendations are either completed or are in process of being completed. So we moved the office, which I think is a great win for us. That allowed for much more, a much better experience for the caller when they called in to book a trip, as well as for the dispatcher to be able to communicate with the drivers and be able to do that efficiently. We developed a shared ride program. We had, at times, drivers that were getting phone calls because they were using their cell phones from passengers that were trying to arrange for trips. There's a safety issue. There's a variety of issues. The safety issue is that we don't know where the driver is. If the driver's been called and told to go someplace, the dispatcher has no idea of where that driver is, which is a safety issue. It's also an efficiency issue. If we have a pickup that's here and the driver's been diverted here by a phone call, we're not able to get that trip over here picked up because he or she is out of position. So we developed a shared ride policy, and we also included the drop-off times onto the manifest so that the driver understood where they were supposed to go and when they were supposed to drop off. It was a little bit, gave the dispatcher and the reservations a little bit more control over the system. We also encourage that the dispatcher reservationist be scheduled Monday through Friday to allow for weekend or that Friday trips that are going to be booked for Monday. And we developed and implemented a no-show policy, which was very, very detailed as to our needs for riders when they need to no-show and how they're supposed to no-show so that the system is able to handle as many trips as possible. And finally, we improved the manifest so that you could see the pickup and drop-off times, as well as included information for the drivers on their vehicle inspection reports, so that they were able to identify issues that were from a maintenance perspective, so that we were compliant with the CHP. We also introduced Direct Connect radios, and that was hopefully a bit. There's some dead spots in San Pablo. However, for the most part, it's working pretty well. The communications are a lot faster and more efficient. We just talked about the CHP compliance, but we also got in touch with our testing office down in Southern California. I'm not sure of exactly where it is, but we made sure that we had a policy with our Human Resources Department so that our record keeping was much better, so that when we were audited by CHP, they did see that we were in fact testing appropriately. Our random pool is where it's supposed to be, and we were compliant with the law. We also created a safety policy for loading wheelchairs. The one thing that was a very big concern to us was that the drivers were not really focusing on their own safety when it came to loading passengers. And we were also using non-trained, San Pablo employees to load chairs, which is not a great idea. So we instituted a policy where the drivers is supposed to take 100% authority over loading the passenger, and made sure that if the driver did not feel safe, that they immediately contacted dispatch before they tried to board a chair so that they didn't get injured. We also, and Doug will talk about this in a second, we also instituted new driver training and lifts and the wheelchair marking and tether strap program. And that'll be talked about a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to turn this over to Doug now. If anybody has any questions, I would appreciate it if we could ask them at the end after Doug's finished, so that we can hopefully answer questions as we go. And thank you very much for your time.
Is this good? You can hear me fine? Okay. Hello. As some of you know, I'm a longtime professional in accessible transit and paratransit, and I started in that back when I was still in college in 1979, and ended up coming to California. And before becoming a consultant 10 years ago, I was the accessible services manager at AC Transit, and before that also at Sacramento Regional Transit. The first thing we wanted to do with the planning study for San Pablo's transportation program was to get opinions and statistics on residents. And this is both people that use the San Pablo door-to-door shuttle and the group trip outings service out of the senior center, and other people that may not. So we did a survey, and I'll wait till I get to the end. I have a picture of the event we had at the senior center for the kickoff of the survey, and we got a lot of information. This little summary that I'm presenting right here is just kind of the very top level of it. But there were 45 people who completed the survey. Most of them were seniors, but interestingly, there were a few who were either near seniors or younger people with disabilities who are also served by programs at the senior center. The majority were female, but there were a good number of male respondents. And travel purposes were found to be the usual for senior populations, with grocery shopping, medical, senior center activities, other shopping and errands, visiting and social, and hairdresser barber purposes being the most frequent. There were a number of other purposes, including church and some other things. Okay. One of the most interesting things out of the survey is finding out how people get around. And what we're showing here is the different modes of travel that they use. And this doesn't mean they only use that mode. They could use one, two, or all of them. But this is the number of people, percentage of people that responded. The most frequent being getting rides with family or friend. And then, interestingly, the next most frequent, taking AC Transit or BART. And then after that, walking or wheeling a wheelchair on the streets, sidewalks. And then 40% were users of the San Pablo door-to-door shuttle. 36% drive themselves still, and a quarter of the respondents use East Bay Paratransit, with a little less than that sometimes using taxis. Taxis were not a very big factor in the transportation scene. So after conducting and summarizing the survey and talking about it with the city, we did stakeholder interviews with city staff, including Aaron and the city manager and assistant city manager. Am I right about that, or is it mayor? City manager and assistant city manager. And what we say here is local transportation planning officials, which I did, and that was actually your vice chair of the PCC, Janet Abelson, and Joanna Pollack from WICTAC. Well, both are here. Hi. Okay. One of the things we wanted to do was, since we knew there were all these different transportation modes used and a lot of different types of destinations, we mapped that out with the city limits on this map. It has the AC Transit bus routes on it, and it shows where it points to where the BART stations are, because they're off of this map, which is just of the city of San Pablo. But it gives a good idea that there's a lot of transit coverage in San Pablo. Some of them are the main arterial route, the 72, et cetera, down San Pablo Avenue, and then there are several other crosstown routes that aren't as frequent, but they're still a basic transit route. Okay, and the next. Then we also mapped where the major trip generators are. Oh, I should say the points on the map were the trip generators, such as grocery stores, drug stores, the senior center, et cetera. And then on this second map, it shows the service area region that the door-to-door shuttle serves, and it goes not far, but fairly well outside the boundaries of the city itself, such as to Appian Way and downtown Richmond and Del Norte BART. And these are common, even daily destinations on the door-to-door shuttle. And they, especially the medical ones, will probably become even more important with the closing of Doctors Hospital. Okay. After looking at who and how transportation is used within San Pablo, we looked at their actual service and funding levels for the door-to-door shuttle, which I'm calling Paratransit here. It's called Paratransit for the Measure J funding purpose. 4 years worth of data starting in 2011, 2012. That's a fiscal year. It goes from July to June. And they had almost 2,500 trips on the door-to-door shuttle that represented about 10 trips a day. That continued into, at that roughly that same level, into 2012, 2013. And then in 2013, 2014, many of the changes were made even before the consultants came on that upgraded the availability and amount of service available. And so the amount of trips doubled, and it's gone from roughly 10 passengers a day to almost 20. And the last column here on this chart is the projection for 2014, 2015. And keeping at the current level of ridership and maybe increasing even a little bit more. And it shows all of these compared to the funding, both the total expenses that the service cost, including capital, and these figures here, starting with 147,000 in 2011-12, includes the capital. So you can see that of 81,000, that there wasn't a big expense back in that earlier year. But now there is a bigger expense, and without any capital purchases for last year and this year, it's around $265,000. So that's slightly more than the annual Measure J apportionment claim, and it has the effect of reducing slowly the Measure J reserve balance that the city's carrying, and that will be reduced even further if they buy new vehicles or have any other capital expenditures. Okay. So from all of the things in the survey and the interviews and general research, the main issues we wanted to highlight were that demand actually exists right now for expanded service, and examples of that are door-to-door shuttle service on Saturdays, maybe in the future even Sundays, because especially that demographics will result in increased future demands. That's the reality of the aging of the population, and also in San Pablo's case, having lower income than average. In fact, San Pablo's income level within the city of residents is quite a bit lower than the average income of Contra Costa County residents, or Alameda County residents for that matter. And to do this, we identified, and the city already had this as one of their goals in the RFP, is to upgrade marketing and education about the services. And this means both about the city's own in-house provided service and about other transportation services that are available to residents. So to get, call it, this is a type of mobility management, where you match people with the most appropriate service for their needs. What we also found out is that so far customer satisfaction with the door-to-door shuttle is very high. That's kind of natural given the nature of how it was provided in the past, and the city's going to need to expect, as they make it more efficient and more productive and serve more people, they might get a complaint once in a while about having to wait too long or something that people are used to in typical paratransit environments. Also, like I mentioned before, that both seniors and disabled residents need and want to use public transportation and other services like potentially Medi-Cal, Medicaid, Medi-Cal services in addition to the city's services. One of the challenges of expanding the city's in-house service is that finding and hiring and training drivers is difficult, and that's something that many paratransit systems have experienced for a lot of years. And lastly, the existing vehicles don't always match the service needs, and you heard Jay talking about difficulties with wheelchair boarding, and that is on the ramp, low-floored minivans that have a ramp, so there's that slope issue, and people with manual wheelchairs cannot wheel up those by themselves and may need a very strong push. At the same time, the city has larger buses that have lifts that could easily get anybody on, but they're not very conducive to the day-to-day door-to-door service that they do. They're really better for the large group trips. So we wanted to look at that. Okay. Out of this came a set of recommendations that we're working on. These aren't final, but they're the big ticket items that we think should be looked at before this study is concluded. And that includes to continue expanding service and efficiency improvements, more service and more efficient service. Also to conduct financial and performance monitoring and planning for the purpose that I mentioned earlier of seeing when capital vehicles or other equipment or facilities would need to be bought, how that matches up with the funding stream, and how the funding can support the ongoing service into the future as it is expanded. At a certain point, they could come to break even or even run out if things got a lot bigger. As you've heard before, improve and increase marketing and education about the service, and that means both about the in-house service and local public transportation services, of which San Pablo is already a type of a regional center in that they have East Bay Paratransit eligibility certification hosted at their senior center. Is it once a week? Once a week, yeah. Following what I said before, the need to upgrade driver recruitment, it's an ongoing effort, just needs to have more resources put into it and some different alternative ways to approach it. What I call modernizing and rationalizing the fleet will be looking at getting a vehicle or vehicles that'll better be able to serve the day-to-day door-to-door shuttle needs and not have the problems that they've had so far. So exactly what kind of vehicle that will be, we will look into what some of the options are. Then along the lines about fixed route and other paratransit options is to develop travel training and education that the city would carry out itself or contract out for. I know you've all heard about these kind of things plenty before. Then also continue to monitor and respond to the county and regional funding resources and mechanisms, and that includes any planning and kind of things that have been going on with Measure J and mobility management, et cetera. And then with the training that we mentioned doing, San Pablo had the opportunity to take advantage of the consultants' expertise in these areas because we do this. So we are going to actually conduct training sessions for the San Pablo staff. And we feel that they could offer this kind of thing both in lift and ramp safety and wheelchair securement and developing a wheelchair marking and tether strap program, which AC Transit was the pioneer of and Mallory was in charge of, to offer it to adjacent communities, possibly with sharing the costs. It's great to do this for San Pablo now, but it's probably not the kind of thing that they would do repeatedly in the future with such a small class. It was just, and that means there's a small number of people that would be being trained at one time. So it would be more efficient and better use of the resources to get some grouping of other agencies in with it. So that is the end of that one, and I have a couple more things to show you. It was very interesting. Yeah, we're going to get out of that. Pictures. Yeah. This was the event where we did the kickoff of the survey, and you can see in the foreground is a table of brochures, transit schedules, flyers, and other things about transportation. You can actually go to the next picture now. Seeing people use touchpads on laptops just gratifies me every time because I stayed away from them. There's the table, picture of the table. Sorry, that was my pulpit there. The IBM ThinkPad has a little eraser head. People say is no good, but once you get used to it, you never want to go to anything else. This is, again, a picture of the table, and we can go to the next one now. Just the plethora of information there is, and the difficulty, it's the one Clipper card. It's about knowing how to use public transportation services, especially fixed route services, and we could probably back down to a smaller size of that one. If you go up to the top and hit the minus, yeah, that's good right there. I thought explaining some of the fixed route programs and services would be easy, and actually it wasn't. The Clipper card is pretty complicated, and I had to do a fair amount of research as somebody who already knows the topic to get the actual rules and the practical application of what people need to do and what they need to know. So this is a flyer of information that I made for the San Pablo staff to be able to help residents and senior center users figure out what they should do in getting the Clipper card, and then also the locations where the vendors are, because that's another challenge that the Clipper system has is limited number of vendors in comparison to the older pass sales outlets. So that's just an example of some of the practical on-the-ground work that can be done and that San Pablo wants to do to get transportation used as efficiently and productively for everybody. And that's all I have. Yes?
I just want to ask some really simple questions. I was kind of interested in the fact that you had only 20 some odd rides per day. How many shuttles or vans do you have at San Pablo
It's
for
one or two.
paratransit?
Yeah, we have 3 minivans, but they're never out on the road at the same time. The most we had on the road was 2 at a time. So we have a full-time driver who's working 8:30 to 5. Previously, we had someone who was working Monday through Friday from 9 to 3. But now we're down another driver. So in the past, it hasn't been more than 2 at a time.
So your ridership in total of those that have been qualified for paratransit rides is approximately how many?
We have about 275 people who are registered with us.
and approximately 20 rides per day. I think is what I saw up there for the year of 14. Okay, and do you also cover Richmond and Pinole? This is my stupid question.
No, we, the service is for anybody who is a San Pablo resident. We pretty much all the way up to Kaiser Pinole, and we'll go down to McDonald Avenue in Richmond. Those are kind of the borders we set for ourselves so as not to, because we could be driving all over the East Bay.
I'm curious to know how many days in advance do you have to request a ride?
We try to get it, you can request it up to 3 days in advance to 24 hours. If we can do the same day with a cancellation, we will, but we try to get it 24 hours in advance so we can get our run sheets done.
And are you having an increasing amount of riders going to and from dialysis?
I don't have those statistics, but I can get back to you on that.
I was just kind of surprised at the lower amount of ridership comparative to the amount of coverage area, and why there wouldn't be more interest. It just seems like there would be a lot more riders that would ride if they knew about it. Is that the fact or not?
Well, what I have, I've seen a huge increase in our rides, so for me, that's our new normal.
Right.
But, I know that if we had another driver, we could probably fit more riders in. But right now, we don't have that extra driver.
So it's not a matter of giving the information out to people who need it. It's more of the fact that there's just not that much necessary need in that area.
I think it's a little bit of both. I don't think you can ever do too much marketing. I know that we did a ton of marketing when we first back in December of 2012, I think that's when I started this position. So we did a lot of marketing then, and we've been out, kind of at city events and things like that. So I think that marketing is always something that we can improve upon. But yeah, I think being down a driver has really been something that we need help with.
I was just curious. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
It's a service area for pickups of 2 square miles. So it's a fairly small area. And the population is of seniors is 2,500 people age 65 and above.
What about disabled? You wouldn't know?
Don't think that was available at that level.
Thank you.
And just to kind of add on to that, the transportation program does run out of the senior center, so the majority of our people that we service are seniors. Riders who are over 18 who have a disability, they would be qualified to ride with us too. We just don't have as much of that population, access to that population right now. We've got a few folks who do come into the senior center, and they do ride with us, but that's one area where we could improve, definitely.
And the study calls for significantly increased marketing and education about the city's own in-house service.
It seems like possibly going through HUD, because there are a lot of apartment complexes that are designed for disabled, may give you some insight into riders who are in that age category.
Okay. Thank you.
Just a thought.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm Heidi with TriDelta. I have a couple of questions. One, you indicated you use, what type of dispatching software do you utilize?
We don't use a dispatching software. We just Microsoft Excel.
Oh, is that what? Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. And then also I wanted to commend Doug on the information gathering that you had to do with the Clipper card. That is a issue that all of the providers are facing, that we're having to gather our own information to give it out to our customers because it's not available through the Clipper system itself. And I thank you for doing that for the individuals in San Pablo.
Could we get a copy of that?
Yeah, we'll sell it for a discount. No, Aaron can hook you up with that easily. she got tired of me giving her revised versions of it. I would think I had it down, and then something else would come up, and I'd talk to yet another person and find out I didn't have it right.
Michael?
Just one question about the point that says that BART ticket vending machines still sell regular green and red discount tickets. Has that been
Yes.
confirmed? Because it is my understanding that
No.
about a year ago they stopped doing that and are only selling it at the local, like BART office and. But
I don't
just-
think they ever did.
Well, there's another version coming.
You should have asked a person who you.
There you go.
Oh, now it works.
Mine's on.
Hello?
Can anyone else get theirs on?
Yeah, mine works.
Okay, we're back in service. Okay, did anyone on the committee have any more questions? Mallory?
Sorry, it was me. I broke the system. Keep me away from the heavy equipment. So for clarification, you have 2 minivans and 1 25-pack.
We have 3 minivans.
3 minivans.
A 25-passenger, a 16-passenger, and a 20 passengers. The 16-passenger is actually in the process. It's been surplus by the city, and we're trying to get rid of that, which I think we're going to talk about later.
The 16-pack. Okay. And so my question is, what certifications are you requiring of your drivers, and who is currently doing your driver training?
Class B, we try to have them have their Class B. Both of my drivers right now have Class B licenses.
No P endorsement?
They're passenger endorsed, yeah.
Okay, so BPs, but not a Class C for your minivans even.
I like them to have a B. That makes me feel better. I think it's safer,
And so who does the training?
that's what we're working on. They've come to us with training. They come with their green medical card, and if someone came with us with no training, we wouldn't be able to hire them.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions from the audience? Okay, not seeing any. Debbie?
I just have a comment that just brought up, because when County Connection donated out the first round of vans, they allowed any new drivers that we hired to go through their training program. So it certainly might be worth looking into when who's out, either AC Transit or not Tri-Delta, WestCat does their trainings of their new drivers that you might be able to hijack or just participate in.
Thank you.
Okay, are we ready to move on in this presentation?
I think we're all
We're all done?
We're all done, yeah.
Okay, well, are we ready to move on to the next item, or is there some other part to this?
It doesn't have to do with the study part, just this is the vehicle that we are going to be getting rid of. I had asked one of the staff members to take pictures, and so he forgot to take pictures of the inside, so I will email those pictures to you, Peter. This was the best one I had. Thank you. She's looking for a good home.
How many miles?
It's not a lot. It is about 26,484.
Oh, it isn't much, yeah. Okay, well, thank you. That was a really interesting report and a great model of doing that process, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is expiration of member terms. Peter, is this something you're going to handle?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is the annual, this time of year prior to the first part of the fiscal year, We have to take a look at members whose terms are expiring, and if they want to renew those, then the PCC would take action to have those folks come back for another term of 2 years. Page, I don't know what page.
It's the third piece of paper.
Yeah. Okay. I don't have page
Mine,
numbers
on mine it's the third. Anyway.
Anyway, it's item number 6, and it's the second page, is the folks whose terms are expiring. Colleen, Carl, Dee, Penny, and Debbie. And so what we generally do is find out if they want to continue, then the PCC would take action to have them serve a new term.
Aren't there more than that? I could down at the bottom.
Yeah, this is for
Did I count wrong?
2014.
I can count 7.
Where does it say that? Oh, sorry, I missed that one. I redid it. So these expire. No, these are the folks that expire at June of 2014. This June, this coming June, their terms expire. I apologize. It says June 30th, 2013, but that's incorrect. It's 2014.
And you're counting 7, right?
There's 5.
Why can I count to 7? Are you counting the service agency staff?
There's Debbie and Penny from
Oh,
service
you're on a
agency.
different piece of paper, but 1, 2.
Well, 2 of them are vacant.
5.
2 of those that say 2014 are vacant, Janet.
Oh, yeah. 'cause
Okay.
two of those are vacant.
Okay. So it's vacancies. And I believe we may have an applicant for the West County vacancy.
We do. We have 2. We actually have two applicants from West County.
Okay.
So we'll get into that next. So I guess we need to know if the 5 people are interested in continuing.
Say that again?
We need to know if the 5 that are expiring or if they're interested in continuing on the PCC.
You want to quickly ask them individually?
I think, well, 3 of them are right. All 4 of them are right there in a row.
We're all retiring together.
Not right now, I hope.
Right now.
Oh, are you?
Are the 4 starting with Carl?
Yeah.
Okay, going through Colleen? And everybody's
Carl, Colleen, Debbie, and
anxious
Colleen.
to stay on board? No?
Oh, Carl's not? Okay.
And since I am the antique here, followed even years later by Janet, I am going to
Okay.
You're going to what?
I'm going to leave this time.
We don't appreciate that.
I fought all those wars before the ADA, by the way. I was on here before the ADA. What would we do without you? I was there actually when I had to listen to this committee at the time. We didn't have users at the time. Discuss how to get around the changes that the ADA would bring. It was painful times, I'll tell you. Wow. So, anyway, Mallory was there along the way too. Much later, we had meetings in places that were not accessible.
I remember that.
Places that weren't accessible, yeah, believe that. You came in when we moved to the bus company site. Wow.
But that wasn't accessible either.
No, it wasn't, but it was better than the previous one. Anybody who wanted to come took a bus and had to drive their chair in the street to get to the office.
You can't go unless you can find someone to replace you as good as you.
Oh, well, I've got somebody better. Someone that will hold the feet to the fire better than I do.
Find that hard to believe.
No, truly, I've been grooming somebody. It'll be up to the DD council to approve, though.
So,
Somebody, there will be somebody for sure.
So Carl's also saying no? Okay. And then Debbie, what are you saying?
I'm okay.
Okay.
So we're representing a social service agency, and if I can't continue on, then our program director will. So I don't know how that plays out, but
But I think we're asking the question about you, aren't we, at the moment? I don't know.
Well, she's talking, like with me, we're talking about a position within, because it's an agency.
Yeah, I think so both, basically what they're both saying is, well, I don't want to speak for Debbie. Penny has said she won't continue, but she is going to have somebody else from development.
Okay.
Then,
And Debbie has said the same thing, I think.
yeah.
But we.
I don't
but
think Debbie said she's
I don't
leaving
have
right
it
I
in
don't
now.
even think you're
Departure
leaving,
date.
are you? I think we just want to know a name. Is your name going to be the
it's
name?
me for right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Colleen.
Colleen.
Okay, great.
And then D Daly.
I'd love some more abuse. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
She's paying for a ride home.
So did we get through everybody?
Yeah, so everybody just take a vote to have Colleen and D Daly and Debbie for now stay.
Is there a motion?
I so motion.
Okay, there's a motion. Irene, did you get the motion? Okay. And it was made by Heidi, seconded by Michael? Okay. Ready to vote? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. And then we have some vacancies.
Right, so now we'll have another vacancy in East County. So we'll see if the folks from East County know of any other writers out there that would be interested in joining. We have 2 applications from West County and 1 vacancy, and we have 1 application from Central County. So, Madam Chair, if you want to appoint as chair for this meeting a subcommittee to review the 3 applications that we have and make a recommendation back to the PCC. At a
Okay,
future
so
meeting
we'll
for that.
do that and then bring it back for the next meeting? Okay, so we'll do that. I'll be on it. Anybody else want to do that?
Would that be prior to the next meeting?
Yes.
I'll volunteer for it.
Okay, and anyone else?
Typically the chair.
Michael?
And typically the chair's on there, so we might
Okay.
ask Sam if he wants to.
Okay. So that gives
That
us
would be
4
4.
people?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's plenty. And then are we thinking we might do it right before the meeting?
Well, we're talking about having
Or-
a special meeting in June, so we might hold off until the July meeting to do the applicants.
Okay.
One of the requirements is that they attend a meeting prior to being put on the PCC permanently. And one of the West County residents had trouble getting a ride here today. She had planned on attending. She's very interested, so we're going to try and get her to this meeting in June if we have one.
You're sure you're not talking about the person who did get here from West County?
The person who did not get here from West County.
Okay, but
Yeah.
there is one person who did get here from.
There's one that got here, and we have another
Okay.
one who was very
So did
interested,
she
but she
do-
couldn't get here.
So they have to,
They have to attend one meeting just to observe.
before they go through the
Correct.
interview?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so that means that the interviews will be before the meeting in July? Okay, and there's nothing the
And I think
committee
that-
would do
yeah.
before then? Michael?
Just a question about, the city of Antioch is now showing vacant on the form that you gave in this meeting. I'm just curious, it changed from Gina Lambert?
Yeah, and actually when we get we'll be taking Antioch off the bylaws when we do the bylaw revision. So technically they still have a seat, but Gina hasn't been, she's not coming.
Okay, I believe we finished that item, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so we'll go on to item number 7, which is the fiscal year 14-15 Mazer J claims approval and recommendation to the CCTA board.
Yeah, so the subcommittee met on May 5th, I believe, a Monday, and went through and met with all of the service providers. And the committee this year was Sam and Laramie and Debbie and Heidi. And again, as usual, it was a very good discussion with all of the operators. I think one of the main topics in West County, especially, was the potential closing of Doctors Hospital and how that will affect transportation needs in West County, and potentially into Central County if some people are going to the hospital in Martinez. So that was one of the discussion items with all of them. We did have, we asked 3 of the providers to make a few little revisions on their claims and send them in, and I've gotten all 3 of those. So if other people on this subcommittee, Debbie or Laramie or Heidi, want to make any comments, this would probably be the time to do it regarding any of the applications. Otherwise, we would, I believe, recommend approval of all the claims.
Recommend motion to move the claims forward as submitted. So I'm motioning to accept them as presented.
Okay, there's a motion by Heidi, seconded by Michael, to approve the claims as submitted. Ready to vote?
I just wanted to make a comment that Aaron has done an incredible job in San Pablo, and it was, having done this for many years, just remarkable, the difference. So congratulations and thank you.
Oh, okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition or abstention? Motion carries unanimously. Now I have a question. When are we supposed to get over by?
3:30.
3:30, okay. And so we'll now move on to our next item, which is an update on the Contra Costa Mobility Management Plan and special June meeting.
Yeah, so this is an item, as you recall, from the last meeting. The authority board asked staff to talk to the RTPCs about County Connect, the plan that County Connection did on behalf of the county, countywide, for mobility management in Contra Costa County. We have gone to all of the RTPCs. We've received several comments. We've received most of the comments in writing from West County. We just received those a few weeks ago from WICTAC. So we are still in the process, I'm still in the process, of putting together a proposal to move forward to the Planning Committee and the authority. So I think just a real quick summary. We don't have to have a lot of discussion about it today to keep things moving forward, but there's strong support countywide for mobility management and the functions. How that's delivered is where we come into some differences. West County had some significant comments regarding how it's going to be rolled out, the differences between West County and the rest of the county, West County being more of an urban environment, the rest of the county being more suburban, and how that would affect potential programs, mobility management programs as they go forward. The oversight of the mobility management, those are some of the things. So I suspect that we're probably going to have a two-prong recommendation. One would be how to best provide mobility management services in West County and fulfill the transportation needs of people as they move along the I-80 corridor, north and south for the most part, into Alameda County, and then one for Central, Southwest, and East County, the more suburban area, and that out there. So what I wanted to do was to keep this moving forward is schedule a meeting in July of the PCC that I could bring forward the recommendation that staff wants to propose to the authority, and then have PCC take a look at that and provide any comments or questions or revisions to that proposal. So I didn't specifically have a date in mind, but we typically meet the third Monday of the month, so the third Monday in June is probably the best place to start.
I'd like to make a comment, not really so much about this item, but the previous one that maybe I should have made then, and that is that, but it's the same issue and that is when when you were discussing the closure of the hospital, some of us would not try to move to Martinez. They would go to Alameda County.
I wasn't suggesting they'd move. I was suggesting for medical trips.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay. Well, that's just what the group discussed at the meeting.
Oh, okay.
So that there was a possibility of that. I wasn't trying to,
No, I don't mean you personally. I'm sorry that I said you, sort of the big you. I just wanted to point out that it's, I believe, as close from my area. It's as close to hospitals in Berkeley as it is in Richmond already. So to talk about going to Richmond is perhaps appropriate for some people, but not for all. Just to make sure that this whole corridor thing that you're now talking that you're now talking about is it's not just that in that one area of mobility management; it's in other things too. So just to be, in fact, I'm sorry, I should have added it earlier. I guess I'm personally thinking about if things go to pot at Richmond Kaiser because of the overload of patients, then I personally am seeing myself just going to Oakland because doesn't take any more time. I've been going there a lot recently with various issues that I've had. So anyway, I'm sorry that that's kind of off the topic there, but anyway.
If I can just say, not so much that that's a function of this body that we would discuss that during Measure J reauthorization of funding. It was more organic that it came up as a point of discussion in the course of that, and I think that that's exactly what this body needs to be doing, is identifying issues as they arise, whether it is traveling to Oakland to see your physician when doctors closes, or whether it's traveling to Martinez, but identifying that we're going to have a massive gap in services if we don't address this issue. And I think that that's something that needs to be addressed on a much broader scale than just here. But you're absolutely right. But I think, where does that go is the bigger question, and how is it being addressed? And is the board addressing that, or individual providers addressing that? Who's having the conversations? I mean, something needs to be done so that people aren't left without accessible transportation to their physician.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm sorry to have kind of taken us a little bit off topic, but anyway, Peter, can you bring us back on topic?
Yeah, so I just talked a little bit about the status of the mobility management plan and taking that item back to our board and seeing if we could meet. Is it the 16th? Is that what I heard back there? June 16th? June 16th, which is the third Monday in June, to take an item, or for the PCC to meet to discuss the mobility management moving forward.
I don't know about anyone else. My daughter is graduating with a PhD that day.
On a Monday?
What?
On a Monday?
Yep. It's when the ceremony is in Oregon, and I will be there for some odd reason.
Does the date sound okay with everybody else? Third Monday. I'm sorry, my phone's charging. I'd have the calendar.
So are you adding an extra meeting?
Yes.
In essence, so we have a quorum. We need to have a quorum
Yes.
here. Okay.
That's right. Yes.
I'm woefully uneducated about this.
Does that
but
sound?
I will be here.
We do need to take action since we're adding a special meeting.
Oh, at this meeting?
Yeah, for a June meeting.
Okay, so does that mean we need a motion?
Yes.
I move that we add an additional PCC meeting on the third Monday of June.
Is there a second?
I second it.
That was Aaron, right? Okay, so the motion was made by Debbie and seconded by Aaron. to add a meeting on June 16th, special meeting. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition or abstention? Motion carries unanimously. So are we done with the item?
Yes, we are done with that item.
So we're ready to move on to the next item, which is an update from East Bay Paratransit Consortium on one call, one click training. Mallory.
Thank you, Mallory Brush, AC Transit. Debbie wrangled me into this at our program review. Anyway, you know that 3CTA has done their program for mobility management. AC Transit has also been involved in a paratransit inventory, working with 211 in Alameda County through coordination efforts with the various agencies that responded to our survey. We submitted an application and were selected. It was one of 8, including Guam, which has a population of 150,000 people total, very small. But it is through the National Center of Mobility Management. And what we're hoping to gain is an action plan to move us forward in our steps to move into or look at a one call, one click. Clearly, the information and referral, our relationship with the 211 system in Alameda County. We have an improved website. It's not active yet, but an improved website. What I call it taxidermy, but it's really taxonomy, a special language that they use for their folks to figure out how to read the system. So we're working, and transportation now is a front and center piece of their website. In coordination with the CIL as well as 211, which is run by, it's Eden Information and Referral that runs a 211 system in Alameda County, we'll be developing a training program for their agents in order to respond more appropriately. Because our goal, we had 3 goals to pick from in this training. We've been in 2 different training sessions, and we have homework every week, and we got another call tomorrow, and we got to develop all this stuff. I mean, it's like really aggressive. And then we'll be meeting with the instructors in St. Paul in June. But it again, is to develop a path for us, because it's BART, AC Transit, Veolia, Eden INR, CIL. So we're working with all these folks and just trying to lay out some sort of a formalized plan, because we're sort of all over the place. You know, we have an idea, I have a vision, may not match everybody else's vision. And we're also working with ACTC, which is the Alameda Commission. That's it. We're doing the webinars. We don't get a certificate, I do not believe, but hopefully we will have an action plan that will take divergent agencies and move us to one path. So we'll keep you up to date and see where we go. We've done our first homework, which was really beefing up the task that we have to accomplish, more information, like you talked about, eligibility for the 211 system. Cost, we have a lot of detail in our information from our survey, but now we'll be marketing the 211 system, and prior to marketing that system and providing staff through this grant, we will develop a training program that they all will be trained to, and as well as our own staff at East Bay Paratransit, so that we can access the information. So long term, and we explained to them, we have a 211, we have a robust 511, but East Bay provides the most trips in Alameda County and have the largest call center. So it makes sense for us to move forward. And if it doesn't at the end of the day, then it doesn't at the end of the day. But we're exploring all of our options. So,
any questions?
Just
Yes.
in a nutshell, can you tell me what is one call, one click, and 211? Just the nutshell of it.
I guess you weren't here at the last meeting. Yeah, it is just like 411 is 911, 511 is fixed route, 211 is information and referral for seniors and individuals with disability, and it's everything. It's housing, transportation, child protective services, shelter, so it's everything, but most of those generally will include a transportation component. So we want to beef these people up because our goal really is to best match whoever's calling with the most appropriate service. So that's what 211 is.
Okay, any other comments, questions on this item? Okay, thank you very much. And now we'll move on to item number 10, which is the Service Review Advisory Committee report, which I should be doing, and I forgot my notes, and Mallory has said she will do.
The Service Review Advisory Committee, again, is the advisory committee to East Bay Paratransit. We have meetings every other month. It's consumers, agencies, et cetera. At this last meeting, which was in June, we had a representative. May?
But June, we haven't
Oh,
had
that's
June.
right, we haven't hit June. Yeah, it was May. Unified Dispatch is the other half to our software upgrade, which is the interactive voice response, which we've been waiting for. We haven't accepted the final upgrade to our software. So we have not implemented, but we need to get moving forward. So we did have a representative that walked the group through, selected volunteers to participate in a pilot program. The first piece that we will implement will be night before calls. So just like Kaiser, you'll get a call from East Bay Paratransit reminding you of your trip the following day. And then the second piece that we will implement once that piece works will be imminent arrival, and that the vehicle will be on its way. So we're hoping next 3 or 4 months that we'll be able to get that rolled out to folks. Other than that, we had Rashida Kamira, who is the Director of Operations, provide a rundown on how we handle customer complaints at East Bay Paratransit. Went through our customer call center. They've been going through a lot of group activities because the call center is a pretty difficult environment. So they went to Zeppos or Zappos. Anybody heard of that place? Zappos. Anyway, so they're all breaking up into teams, decorating masks or something, and then top hats and T-shirts. And it was great because it was all based on availability. That was our goal. You know, how often are you available? We can monitor how often you're available. And as soon as they started doing all these just little sort of silly, fun group exercises, our availability rate went up. So better atmosphere in the office, good for the troops. So that was a nice thing. So I think that was really the bulk of the meeting.
Thank you. And so now we'll move on to item number 11, which is the Bay Area Partnership Accessibility Committee, and Sam normally does that, but he's not here.
Do you want me to do it? I'm the chair.
Sure.
Okay. It's Mallory. BayPAC, what we talked about, we're accepting 2 new members into the Regional Transit Discount Card Program. That will be Solano Transportation Authority, which is actually the funding authority. Rio Vista is not going to be participating anymore, so Solano Transit Authority stepped in. Soul Trans is still participating, and then WestCat wants to join. So we will provide training through the medical verifier, which is Cordoba, to issue take pictures, process applications for the Regional Transit Discount Card.
Okay, not seeing any comments here. The next item is the Senior Mobility Action. Is that what you just did? Okay, the Senior Mobility Action Council, which Sam normally does. Any takers? What?
I don't think anybody was there.
Okay, well, we'll just move on. And funding opportunities?
I'm not aware of it.
Okay.
What about if you could take something like the gentleman at the beginning was talking about a seat pack or whatever, and put a logo design that might advertise something to do with paratransit and sell it at a reasonable rate that would also add money to us and give us some sort of advertising. Just throwing out the idea.
I think the transit operators can take that message.
Okay, thank you.
That's my best guess.
Okay, thank you for doing it. Okay, future agenda items. Are there any? Penny?
I don't know where to put it, but I feel such tremendous neglect in the central county area, and after all the years trying to get to a location for this meeting, and we're missing the people who come from this region where we're holding the meeting. Very troublesome to me, and I don't know, I had hoped maybe ILR could help us with that because they serve a lot of people who live here. And so, I don't know, but I just think it's a topic that maybe we could revisit and see what to do. I
I'm
don't know.
confused, if you don't mind, what you're,
For community members' participation here. Central County has 3 vacancies, 3 out of 3. And
it's for
we
consumers,
most
right?
often-
Yeah.
Yes, and we most often don't have representation. I couldn't remember the last time
Right.
we've had it.
But, what does ILR have to do with that?
Well, because they serve folks in this community who use paratransit services, and they're a big, they provide services and know people who could perhaps be interested.
So they might know people who could do that. So are you in a position to talk to them about that?
Well, we have a member on here who is from ILR. He's not here today.
Could you follow up on that maybe?
I'll ask.
Okay, because I've noticed what you're saying too.
Hopefully he'll be at the next meeting here and can
Uh-huh.
be part of that conversation, since I will not.
You will not be here anymore?
No, I'm not going to be continuing.
You mean at all? What if we, I thought it was at the end of the term.
I'm going to do a tattoo. Well, this is the end of the term.
I actually thought July 1st was when the term ended, but maybe it's because I don't really want you to leave.
We are having a special meeting in June, so if both Carl and Penny are available to make it, that would be great.
I'll try to come to that.
I bet maybe the Transportation Authority could arrange a cake. Yep, I'm hearing a nod. Gotta come.
She's magic.
And Carl, you too. Gotta come. That would be perfect. And then we'll get to see you one more time. Okay, thank you. So future agenda items, I think we were on that, right? Or we're done with that. So news to share.
Penny has news to share.
That was news we don't like.
May I ask you a personal question? You're not retiring, are you?
I will have to say that at this time it would be not personal, given that there's a room full of people and fears that shouldn't hear.
Okay, so with that, we're